Good evening, folks. Hi, I'm the facility of the School of Information, Eric Glad. Welcome to that School of Information here at Manhattan Center. This evening, I wanted to go ahead and give you an overview of our school, an overview of our programs, lots of questions from the room, and then we'll go on a brief tour of the facility. And if you have more questions, I'm happy to stick around as much as you have questions. Thank you for coming here tonight. Just a little bit about the School of Information here at Pratt. We are indeed the oldest information school in North America. We trace our roots back to 1890, when the founder of Pratt Institute, Charles Pratt, who you see there, founded not only the Pratt Institute Free Libraries, which offered free library service to Brooklyn residents, but also, and he created Pratt Institute. And as he created this free library, he needed a way to staff those libraries, and hence the Pratt Institute Library School was born in 1890 and has been operating ever since. We spent most of our life on the Brooklyn campus of Pratt Institute, which is in the Clinton Hill neighborhood of Brooklyn, which probably maybe many of you know. And we moved here in 2002 to this part of building here in Manhattan. And so today, we're still very much, we have our roots as a library school, but we've expanded in many ways as well. We're very much motivated by our vision and our mission, which you can find here. And one of the things that makes us a little bit interesting among other information schools is we really aim to be kind of making connections with art, culture, and design as we work in the information field. So that is something that makes us a little bit different. We don't tend to be big science or big medicine kind of school. We're more of kind of art, culture, and design, and how that intersects with information, whether information could be libraries, archives, UX, data analytics, museum studies, and so forth. Sounds like folks might think I'm sounding a little distant on Zoom. I will try to speak a little louder, maybe lean a little bit closer to my nifty camera over here. Just a little bit about who we are. We are our faculty is, we have about 13 full-time faculty, and these are primarily researchers and scholars, and they act as advisors to students. And then we also have about 40 or some odd part-time faculty, and these are primarily folks who are working around town here in New York, and they will come here and teach at night. We have a lot of folks who teach at night, and at 6:30 we have a bunch of classes, and when we go upstairs, you'll definitely see them. But these are primarily folks who are working as in libraries, archives, tech companies, elsewhere, and they're coming here to teach at night. So before I get into any specifics of individual programs, there's just a couple of points I want to make real quickly. These programs are all offered in person, so we are primarily a face-to-face programs. This semester, I believe we're 96% in person. We had never really done an online course until COVID. So definitely if you're interested in an online program, we're not the program for you, but if you are interested in face-to-face experience, getting to know your fellow classmates in the real world, getting to know your faculty in that kind of way, living and working here in New York City, these are great programs for you, but definitely not so great for online programs. And a couple other things about our programs is we do offer courses throughout the day. So the busiest time is 6:30 at night. But then we also have quite a lot going on at 3 o'clock and also at 11:30. Definitely if you're working, for example, you can definitely come here and take classes at night. If you're not working, you could take classes throughout the day as well. So how many folks here in the room were interested in our library and information science program? I think we got a bunch. Great. And for those of you joining us late, we do have a sign-in sheet, so I'm going to just do another pass around. And so if you didn't have a chance to check your name off, if you could check your name off, I would really appreciate that. But you already did it. All right, so I'll go ahead and tell you a bit about each of our master's programs, and then I'll go ahead and open it up for questions before we do our tour. But sounds like a lot of folks here in the room are interested in our library information science program. I will say it is indeed our oldest program, but its roots trace back to 1890, making it one of the oldest library information science schools in America. It's one of 6 programs that were first accredited by the American Library Association. And we just surpassed our 100-year anniversary of ALA accreditation. So we're pretty excited about that. And as you can imagine, this program is really about preparing people to be librarians, archivists, other kinds of information professionals, all about collecting, managing, preserving, providing access to information. Thank you so much for that. The program is typically completed in 2 years. A typical setup is folks will take 3 classes in the fall, 3 in the spring, then they'll take another 3 in the fall, 3 in the spring, and they're done. There's not a ton of, most people don't do a ton of coursework in the summer. We do have a few summer courses, but with a lot of internships happen over the summer. People are interning, they're working, they're taking time off, but they're not generally doing a ton of coursework. The core curriculum, everyone in the program takes this core curriculum, which gets into reference, instruction, knowledge organization, infotech. And then there's a wide range of electives you can take after that. To help people organize their electives, we have these advanced certificates. They are kind of like an optional minor, and they have required courses you have to take, and they help you develop additional specialization. Those additional specializations you see here: archives, children, young adult library services, a number of other areas. And then we also have program concentrations, and these are really just informal lists of courses to help you kind of plot out kind of career path, where you want to go, the kinds of job titles you might have, and the types of courses you might take to get there. We also do offer a 3-year 60-credit dual degree program, and this is with our history of art and design program. So these are for folks who really want to become specialists in art and information, art libraries, artists' archives, really working specifically in art and design. So definitely for those who are interested in that, we do have that. And that program is primarily offered from the Brooklyn campus. So there's definitely a lot of schlepping back and forth. But if you don't mind schlepping, you can definitely do that. In terms of what you will become if you do this degree, this is a small selection of job titles that we see our graduates get. We survey our graduates 9 months after they graduate, and you see job titles like these here. And in terms of organizations that people work at, it's kind of a large selection from museums, public libraries, publishing, colleges, companies, artist studios, nonprofits, so lots of different kinds of companies. And there was a question Esther asked, is there a sign in for Zoom folks? Actually, we do already collect. If you sign in on Zoom, we know you've joined us. So we're very sophisticated. We have high tech that knows that. But if you're old tech, you have to use the paper for the check-in sheet. Just a little bit about some of what our graduates say about the program when they leave. In general, students are very happy with the program. Our graduate students are very happy with it. In our exit survey this past May, 53 respondents, or 96% of the graduating students, 94% would recommend the program to a friend, family member, or colleague. And 94% are employed when we survey them 9 months after graduation. So generally, it's a pretty happy cohort of people who graduate from this program. So that's the very quick rundown on our library and information science program. I did want to swing around and see what other folks are interested in, and I can move into take questions. Is anyone here interested in our data analytics and visualization degree? Yes.
One, yeah.
The one, yes. Well, I will give you the quick rundown on this, and maybe other folks will be interested in this as well. So this is the library and information science program is really about managing information, helping other people access it. The data analytics and visualization program is really more about using information, using data to do all kinds of things like research analysis, map making, visualization. It is a kind of interdisciplinary program that takes statistics, computer programming, design, usability, and it takes folks from any background, so you don't need a tech background, you don't need coding, you don't need design experience. We really start from wherever level you are coming in at. The program, like the other one, is typically completed in 2 years. 3 courses in the fall, 3 in the spring, 3 in the fall, 3 in the spring. In this program, folks will do stuff with get into statistics, information visualization, computer programming with Python. And then there are a wide range of elective courses that you can take. We do suggest folks take a an additional course in data analysis, an additional course in data visualization, a course in data UX. And then there's open electives that you can take. So both here at the School of Information and within other grad programs at Pratt. I would say also in this program, you can do this optional minor, such as you can do this optional minor. And these minors are kind of live within your 36 credit master's program. So when you graduate, you get both the degree and the certificate. And these certificates include the spatial analysis and design certificate, user experience, and digital humanities. I would say we're particularly strong in map making and maps and data visualization. We have some pretty interesting courses in that area. We have a great geographer who joined the faculty a few years ago. And then a lot of analysis that take in a spatial component. So for example, we have a part-time faculty who teaches a course on spatial statistics. And this is he works at the company Revel, which has those kind of cars that go around, this kind of car sharing program. And so knowing where cars are, like where do you put your cars? And it's kind of a combination of statistics and spatial knowledge that you need. So there's a lot of, we definitely see a lot of interesting work coming out of that kind of, the kind of analysis that includes a spatial dimension. This program, I would say, is much smaller than the other one that I mentioned. This past May, we had 8 graduates, and from those graduates, they're generally, 100% of them were really happy with the program in terms of the quality, the curriculum, and they would recommend it to a friend, family member, or a colleague. In terms of where people work after this program and the kind of jobs they have, these are the job titles we see. So job titles that should make a lot of sense. And then in terms of where people work, it's kind of an assortment of kind of the commercial sector and the kind of nonprofit governmental sector. So kind of a little bit of more of a mix that we see with the Library and Information Science program. All right, so that is a quick rundown on our DAV program. How many folks are interested in the Information Experience Design program? All right, we got good numbers here too, great. So, and I assume I probably have some folks on Zoom who are interested in IXD as well. So our IXD program, this is a program that's really designed to create well-rounded UX professionals. We're focusing in on the 2 main focuses of this program, I would say, are both UX design and UX research and evaluation. This program, you don't need a technical background, you don't need to be a coder, you don't need to come from a design background. We really take people from kind of any kind of previous background. I would also say, this program is like the other program, is our 2-year, these 2-year intensive master's programs. And so it's, quite a bit different than a boot camp that you might see. There's been a lot of these boot camps that have been created over the years where it's kind of, become a UX designer in 4 weeks kind of thing. This is 2 years. So it is, it's a bit more involved, and you create a portfolio that is going to help you stand out amongst all the different folks who might have gone to a boot camp. And also, as like any graduate program is going to really also engage you. We're going to teach you the knowledge and skills to be a UX designer and researcher, but also you'll encounter creative, critical, and ethical challenges. This program, like the other 2 I mentioned, are typically completed in 2 years, 3 courses in the fall, 3 in the spring, and then all over again. In that first summer, a lot of people intern, I would say, that all over the place. And then we have a lot of people who also will intern their whole 2nd year as well. And these are the kind of, this is the core curriculum. So folks will do information architecture, interaction design, usability in the core. Everyone's required to take an ethics and social responsibility elective, which is an area that we have growing concern over the last decade or so, especially with the growth of the technology industry here in New York and just trying to equip folks with, some skills to deal with that. And then from there, folks can do a wide range of elective courses. And we're always creating new elective courses. So we just regularized one here, and I didn't even put it on here. So for example, we just regularized Info 624 service design. This is a course where it's about the user interface, yes, but it's also about how the interface interacts within a larger environment. So what is the total service? So if you think about kind of like, say you go to City MD, right? And there's like a kiosk where you check in, right? But that's just really a component of it. It's also you're in a built environment, an architectural space, there's people there, you know. How does the interface work with respect to everything else that is in that space? So that's a new course we offer, but there's really a wide range of things that we've been able to introduce over the last few years in this program. Everything from UX for AR and VR. So really thinking about the spatial or the UX dimensions of when you put on that headset to do AR or VR, but but also getting into things like writing for digital experience, sustainable interaction designs, content strategy, mobile interaction design. So lots of just a really wide range of different things that focuses in courses that you can take in this program. As I briefly mentioned, this program, while this program, you'll do lots of design, you'll do lots of research and evaluation. We do find that students, once they kind of get into things, they find they're better at one than the other. They're more of a designer, they're more of research and evaluator. And in fact, we do encourage that, and we do kind of suggest people kind of pick one of those paths as you go through the program. And you can see the kind of job titles that are associated with those different paths. So we have courses that satisfy both those paths. So you'll do both of them, but honestly, though, especially as you get into your second year in this program, people are finding that they're really more of a designer or more of a researcher. And that's fine, and we encourage that. In terms of some internships people do, I would say this program definitely pushes folks more out into the commercial sector. So a combination of large companies and as well as startup companies. So names you might heard of like Verizon, and then plenty of companies you might not have ever heard of because they're small startups. And in terms of where people work after graduation, we do see job titles like these, like UX specialists, research analysts, information architect. In terms of employers, we do see, again, a much more a slant towards commercial enterprises, financial services, which is a big employer here in New York. We're seeing a good uptick with hiring from JP Morgan Chase. But then, we'll also see a few, few kind of nonprofits like Stanford, but really we see a lot of, we see big tech, we see financial services, we see startups. In terms of feedback from the program, so we had 57 graduates this past May, and 100% of them completed our exit survey. And as you can see here, they're generally very happy with the program. 98% agreed the program was quality, they found the curriculum to be up to date, and 96% would recommend it to a friend, family member, or colleague. So, with these numbers, you're really talking, 56 out of 57 people really for those top two, or maybe 55 out of 56. So it's, it's in general, maybe not 100%, but it's pretty close. So we're definitely very happy to see that this program that we've created is working for folks. So the very last program I wanted to mention before we open it up for questions is our Museums and Digital Culture program. Do we have anyone interested in that program? That's great. Oh, we got two. Great. So I'll give you a quick rundown on that program. So this is our very unique museum studies program that is really preparing folks to be museum professionals and working specifically with information and digital technology across the life of the museum. This program is completed typically in 2 years, like the other ones, and there's a core curriculum that gets into things like museum digital strategy and museum information management. So this is things like cataloging digital objects, like in, yeah, cataloging objects. In the library information science program, you're cataloging a lot of information, you're cataloging books, and here you're kind of cataloging objects. After the core curriculum, folks in this program will do a course in additional courses in museum information management, digital tools and technologies, and audience experience and community engagement. So for example, we have a great course we run on called audience research and evaluation, where students will go off and do they'll do a research project at a museum, and they'll talk to visitors, for example. This course also, we also collaborate with outside departments in this program, and we have folks in this program can do also courses in curatorial studies. So this is more art history kinds of courses that are relevant for museums. There's even a fine arts course here that's offered from the MFA studios, and then a little bit of museum education if that's one of your interests. So we definitely have folks who go off to be museum educators. This program does offer minors, these certificates that you can do, and in these areas here, such as conservation and digital curation, UX, digital humanities. I would say in general, if you're interested in museums, we do a lot of projects with museums here in courses and in our fellowship program, which I'll talk about in a sec. So that's a really great thing about this program. It's a big focus, I would say, of the school is working with arts and cultural organizations. In terms of graduates of this program, this is the kind of job titles and organizations we see people work with. Generally, people are going to work in the museum sector, although not everyone. So someone probably looks like got a really high paying job at Morgan Stanley, but for the most part, people are working at museums or organizations that really support museums. And job titles that make sense for that. Assistant registrar, collection database work, assistant research assistant. I would say this program generally doesn't prepare people for curatorial roles because it doesn't really get super deep into any area of art history. Although you do see that we do have some people who have managed to get curatorial roles. This program is a small program. In May, we had 6 graduates, and you can see, like the others, we have really strong feedback from our graduating students, such as around course offerings, the quality of the program faculty, and an inclusive and welcoming environment. So we are definitely happy to see that. We also, so those are our 4 master's degrees. That's the quick rundown. We also do, we do have these standalone certificates that you can do. Most of these require that you already have a master's degree. But most of our students, in fact, do one of these certificates within the confines of their 36 credit master's program. So for example, the advanced certificate in archives is 18 credits, but it lives within the 36 credit masters of library and information science. So when you graduate, you get both. You get the Masters of Library and Information Science and the Advanced Certificate in Archives. Did anyone come here today just to do a standalone certificate, no degree, just a certificate?
What is the point of the standalone certificate?
So it would be, the point would be if you, say for example, you got, say a library and information science degree 10 years ago, and you're like, you know what, I really want to, I ended up working in a public library, I ended up working with children, and I love that, but I want to transition to archives. But I haven't done an archives internship in 10 years, I haven't taken a course in this area in 10 years. And so you can kind of come back and do a certificate like this and, help kind of maybe transition within the field is kind of how we see it.
So it's more so for people who already have a master's, not.
In general, yeah. The only certificate up here that doesn't require a master's degree is advanced certificate in spatial analysis and design. So that for folks, if they wanted to do some of the mapping stuff without actually doing a whole master's, we do have that, but these other ones do require. Cool. All right, so So just a bit on scholarships. So when you apply for any of these master's programs, you are automatically considered for a scholarship. There's no separate form. It does require full-time study to qualify for these scholarships. And so full-time study is 3 courses in the fall and 3 in the spring, and you'll be considered a full-time student. Courses meet for 3 hours a week. So a kind of a typical setup for someone is, say, if you're, you have a lot going on during the day, you could say take 3 6:30 classes, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 6:30. I would say a lot of people will do, they'll compare it 3 and 6:30 on one day, and they'll do 6:30 another day, for example. So yeah, I will say though that while you do have to be full-time, we do have a petition process where if your life circumstances should change and you need to drop down to part-time, we do have a really straightforward way to petition to keep your scholarship and drop down to part-time for your second year. Scholarships can cover up to 50% of the cost of tuition, so they're pretty significant. And the upside of them is that they do auto renew for your second year. So say, for example, it says your first year you get a $15,000 scholarship. That's also the same for your second year. So it kind of helps you plan out kind of the total cost. There's not a lot of surprises. In terms of actually I'm gonna jump over that screen real quick. We also, in addition to our scholarships that you get at the time of admission, we also do have this pretty neat fellowship program where towards the end of your first year, you apply for a fellowship. And it's a 9-month fellowship where you work all the second year, fall and spring on a project with an institution. And these are, we have 19 fellowships for this coming academic year. And these are the ones we're gonna be running this upcoming academic year. And actually I have a hair here. I'm gonna fix this right now because I'll never know. This is actually for these would be, this is for the 25-26 academic year. So we're doing a lot of stuff with museums, as you can see here. And there's a mix of fellowships that are kind of some library archives fellowships, as well as ones that are for the data program and ones that are more for the UX program. Yes, sir.
Are those fellowships like one position per fellowship, or there's multiple positions within?
Some of them we have multiple, yeah. So I would say, so for example, we always do 2 with the Met, we do 2 with the Frick. I think this data fellowship with the Metropolitan Museum, we're probably gonna do 2 with them as long as they get the 2 people they want. So yeah, I think, there's definitely some that are duplicative. So those numbers, if that didn't look like 19, that's a lot. Yeah, we have some they take multiple students. But it's pretty great because it's, it's kind of, there's a lot of internships and stuff that are going on in the city, but the nice thing about these is that, they're paid and they're for a whole year, and we set it up in advance with the institution. So like some of the new ones, like for example, we didn't have one this year with them, but we're bringing back this Whitney Museum Digital Asset and Preservation Fellowship, which we're really excited about, should be really interesting, working in that department. But definitely the ones with the Met are exciting. So like for the UX area, like working on the digital products. So typically what they'll work on is things that are some of their international initiatives. They'll work on collection information that's displayed online, how that gets worked out. So lots of cool stuff. A lot of the data ones will work on APIs, for example, like pulling information from the Met's APIs. So lots of cool stuff. We also do, for domestic students, we also do offer financial aid through FAFSA. Or at least we should, as long as the government keeps on going forward, which is an open question. But we do have a financial aid counselor based here, Sonia Chestnut. So definitely, but we definitely have financial aid, and we're happy to answer any questions about financial aid. And I would say that one quick note before I open up for questions is all of our courses are offered here at the Pratt Manhattan Center. Although we will sometimes have a few courses that will be kind of they'll be off-site in terms of, like, for example, we're doing courses at the Met, which is pretty cool. But we don't do any courses on the Brooklyn campus. But if you do live in Brooklyn, or if you can also always use the resources available on the Brooklyn campus, which is a bit more of a kind of a traditional college environment with like freestanding buildings and trees and pathways and all that kind of stuff, and a gym. So yeah, so application deadlines, we are still actually accepting applications for all of our programs. Classes start late August 25th, 2025. The priority admissions deadline was January 5th, but we are still accepting applications. We will, if you are interested in one of these programs, I would apply soon, because we will at some point close these applications. I would say probably information experience design is probably full, or pretty close to being full at this point. But yeah, definitely, if you're interested, I would get your application started, or at least, because really these programs get closed really at any point, especially IXD. It's already, yeah, I mean, we typically will close that program in January, so this is pretty late. In terms of applying, it's pretty straightforward. Pratt.edu/apply. You do need 2 letters of reference, a statement of intent, unofficial transcripts from all colleges you attended. So this is really just like a PDF from your student system, from any college you attended. If you do decide to actually enroll though, like once you're past admissions and you're deciding to enroll, we do require official transcripts, but at the application stage, we don't require official transcripts. And no GRE is required. We never require the GRE, so there's that. You know, who wants to take the GRE? I put myself through it. You know, it's not fun. Anyways, but yeah, so at this point, I'm happy to go ahead and open up to questions from the room, and then we can move into questions folks might have on Zoom. But yeah, at this point, what questions do we have from the room? Yes.
Is it only fall admissions, or do you guys do admissions for spring as well?
We do spring admissions as well, yeah, so applications for spring are due October 1st.
And is that for all master's programs or?
All master's programs, yeah. We take a much smaller cohort in the spring, maybe we'll have maybe 25 people all in joining the school in spring, but we do spring.
And for the
Yes.
fall, when you said you're still taking applications, do you have the drop dead date?
We don't have a drop dead date, but they will, admissions will post stuff online, let me, but so they'll post dates, but then often they'll, if it's not full, they'll roll it back. But yeah, any dates will be posted on the website, but, yeah, we definitely don't have a drop dead date, but I would say definitely LAS, DAB, museums will probably stay open a bit longer, but definitely the information experience design program will likely close like very soon.
Aside from the fellowship program, is there any, like, what does the support look like for getting like summer internships or other fellowships outside those?
Yeah, I would say, in terms of other kinds of things, there's kind of, I would say, both formal and informal mechanisms. In terms of formal, we do have a Center for Career and Professional Development. They they use Handshake, which a lot of colleges use, which like circulate job opportunities and fellowships and internships. I would say also, another useful thing we have is kind of more of the informal, which is we have like school Google groups, which are like listservs, and a lot of time when sites are looking for students for internships, they will send it to us and we will send them out. We have a lot of alums who work in the city, and so they are often, you know, when people graduate and then they like, oh, would be great to have an intern, and they'll basically reach out to us and we'll help circulate it that way. So yeah, I would say, you know, that we don't like place people in internships, I would say, so we don't say, hey, we're gonna, you know, place you here, but we do make available a lot of opportunities. And we give like, you know, resume help, cover letter help, mock interview help, that kind of stuff, so that, you know, when you get that opportunity, you're like ready to go. But yeah, let me think, Yeah, I would say it's, you know, which, you know, the thing is that honestly, it's good preparation though for the job market, because it's basically, that's what the job market is, right? The job market is, you know, you don't get placed in a job as much as we, much, unless, you know, unless you're in, you know, the USSR in 1975, when you graduate from college, you know, they would only educate as many people as they needed jobs for, right? So you would go through an education program that you'd be placed, right? And, you know, the communist systems, that's kind of how they worked, but yeah, anyway, I don't get it off track here, but yeah, so I would say, yeah, it's, you know, there's basically a lot of opportunities that are flowing through. And, yeah.
I'm interested in a dual degree program, and I'm wondering if it's, like, is the only option for dual degree to do art history, or is it possible to do a dual degree in history?
Yeah, unfortunately, we only have an art history program, but we don't have kind of a general history program. Yeah, I do know, I know that NYU and LIU, they do a dual degree program that you can pick from NYU's majors, so.
Yeah, I'm not like 100% sure I want to do dual degree, but if I do end up doing dual degree, like history.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I mean, you could always, we have seen people who, you know, you do the LIS degree and then you. What we see well, I'd say like a lot of academic librarians is, if you're at like an elite institution, like a research one university, often you need a second master's degree. And so sometimes, like, for example, we had a student, Alex Provost, who graduated from here, and she got her MLS degree and she got a job at NYU. And she was like, I need to do a second master's degree. So, you know, so she was at NYU and she was funded through NYU to do the second master's degree. And it was in fact required to get tenure, right? So, so yeah, we do definitely, like, you know, if you're at a kind of a small college or, you know, you're outside of a major metropolitan area, you might not need a second master's degree, but, you know, if you want to be competitive for a library archives job that's like at a top research university, and you know, I'm talking, you know, the ones that are in the news, right? NYU, Columbia, Yale, you know, Princeton, like, yeah, you're gonna need a second master's degree.
It's not.
Other questions?
The commission design program, are there any courses on like physical design of things and spaces, or is it mostly digital?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I would say it's a lot of digital, but we have been creating new stuff in the physical area. So just to go back to that list of electives here, you know, I would say some of what we're seeing is, so we do have a special topics course we're running right now this fall. It's called Experience Design for the Internet of Things. And it's really about designing these little devices, right, that might have an experience design component, right? So using computing devices. So it's really, you know, kind of this, you know, real objects, right? I would say some of the other courses that have more of like a physical component would be like, say, if you're interested in research, for example, would be advanced usability and UX evaluation. So that's a class where they do eye tracking studies. So they'll set people up with you know, these, you know, kind of eye tracking to watch where your eye goes when you're using a screen. It's not really so much making a physical object, but it's kind of more of the kind of things going on in the physical world. And actually, speaking of the physical world, they're also offering right now this fall, it's a special topics course, so it doesn't show up here, a course called Automotive UX. And it's really about, you know, designing the automotive interfaces, the kind of GUIs that are in cars. You know, I'm sure many of you have been in cars recently, right? But you know, it's like a big iPad, right? You know, it's like a big iPad as you're driving, right? And there's some really pretty bad UX and UI and user interface design. So that's one of the things they're working on that course. And we actually set up a little driving simulator for that course, like with a steering wheel and pedals and like a little kind of iPad for folks to design those interfaces. You know, we have a group of that class has actually been pretty popular. We have a big group of them going to the New York Auto Show next month to take a look at things. But But yeah, I mean, I would say, a lot of things are GUIs, but I think, kind of GUI, like mobile, you know. Back in the day, it was all about like the desktop, right? It moved from desktop to touch to mobile. So it's definitely a lot of digital stuff, but we are moving into, like, I would say like, kind of, kind of different kinds of, since digital technology ends up showing up in so many different places, in different devices. You do also, in this program, you do have the option of doing a course outside of this program. So like, for example, in industrial design. So the industrial design program at Pratt, for example, like they make furniture, they make, and they make all kinds of like large 3D objects, right? And if you want to see some of the work that actually from any of the schools at Pratt, I would definitely suggest you attend one of what's called Pratt shows. So each year we do a showcase of student work at Pratt, and so the big one where you can see like what's going on in industrial design is the design show. So this takes place in the this huge kind of gymnasium on the Brooklyn campus. It's actually the largest indoor space after the Barclays Center here in Brooklyn. And it's just, it's got lots of, kind of physical objects that actually, in fact, get fabricated on campus. And but then, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the art showcase, the School of Information Showcase, which is here on May 16th. But we're already taking registrations, so if you're interested, you can certainly register to join. But it's more kind of like a conference.
And the students from the School of Information can take the industrial design courses.
Yes, as long as like there's not weird prerequisites, right? So like, you probably couldn't take like a third semester MFA industrial design, but like, yeah, you can definitely take courses on that program. Thank you. Cool, other questions folks might have? Here in the room. Well, I'm gonna go, now, if you are on Zoom and have a question, go ahead and pop that in the Zoom chat. Or if you want to ask on Zoom using your voice, you can do that too. But I think most people tend to like the chat. I also did want to let you know, if you are interested in international study, we do have one international course in the School of Information. And the students just got back a few days ago. It's called Artist Archives Rome, New York, and it's a spring break in Rome. And we have students doing, looking at artist archives, both here in New York and in Rome, and looking at both institutions and in artist estates and in artist foundations. And definitely if you're, I just posted these on Instagram of their pictures, so feel free you can check out what all that looks like. First, Instagram wants me to log it, but there's like, anyways, they're sitting around drinking. It's like, but there's better. But anyways, you can feel free to, if you want to look at that, you can check that out. But yeah, do we have any questions from folks on Zoom? Because I know we often get good questions from Zoom. Oh, we got a bunch of questions. All right.
Can I ask a question or? I have two questions on the program for the IXD program. Number one, I'm curious if you have some statistics on the acceptance rate for that program. And number two, I've seen similar programs in other schools, but under MFA, not MS. And I'm just curious if there's any actual implications on it being MS versus an MFA.
Yeah, so I would say, so an MFA tends to be a longer program. So an MFA is like a 60 credit program. It's more units, it costs more money. And MS is 36 credits. So it's generally viewed as a smaller program. An MFA is considered a terminal degree in the art and design. So it does qualify you to work at like an art, to be like a faculty in an art and design school. I would say though, say an information school, an MS is like a perfectly good degree to teach it with, although it's not the terminal degree. The terminal degree in information studies is a PhD. So, yeah, so I would just say MFA is just, it's really just, it's a kind of a, it's a, it's a, it's a more time, it's a larger time commitment, since it is a 60 credit program. And the other question was around acceptance rate. IXD program had a really low acceptance rate. I want to say it's probably about, last year it was probably about like 25-30% acceptance rate. However, I think, you know, given kind of the political situation, you know, less people are coming into the US who want to go to graduate school. So I expect that that acceptance rate will probably go up, but it's tended to be pretty competitive over the last 5 to 10 years.
Thank
It's
you.
not yeah. All right, so let me see what other questions we have here on the chat before we go on our tour. And if, for those of you on Zoom, if you're curious how you'll go on the tour, I'll bring you on my phone. So you'll have to look through my camera. So we have a question if you're interested in both LIS and MDC. I would definitely say pick one. So the museums program and the library and information science program, I would say definitely pick one. The library and information science program, I would say, is accredited by the American Library Association. So if you want to be a librarian or archivist, it's really kind of the key degree to get. The museums digital culture one though is going to be perfectly fine for museum professionals. And it's just really good. It's going to depend on what kind of work you want to do. And if you really want to be a librarian or archivist, that's the degree to get. But if you want to do museum work, then do the museums and digital culture. I think this is soft says, do people ever combine a separate program concentration and MLS with the archive certificate? Generally, I would say with the archive certificate, it's kind of like it kind of occupies most of your degree. So I would say in general, people who are doing the archive certificate are kind of really just doing really archivesy kinds of things. So they're not really doing a ton else, I would say, in general. So they're not, taking courses generally in other things. They're not doing teen literature while they're, doing archives. Michaela asks, to clarify, you must have completed an MS or MA degree before you can pursue a certificate, or can you complete them simultaneously? Good question. So I would say most people who are doing our advanced certificates are doing them as MLS or master students. We do occasionally have 1 or 2 people who will have graduated from a master's degree 5-10 years ago, and they'll come back and do one of these. But in general, it's something you do simultaneously. Lynn Lee asks, how competitive are the fellowships? I would say they vary. Some are not competitive at all, and others are more competitive. Some fellowships might only have 1 or 2 people apply for them. Others, we might have 6 or 7 apply for them. So, I would say the IXD ones tend to be more competitive than, say, some of the library and information science ones. Michaela asked, would you be able to share the contact information of any current students, or is that available somewhere on the university website? Do you have information on when fall 26 applications will open? Yes, so fall 26 applications will open in probably after the spring applications open. So I would say probably October, November in the fall, maybe even in the summer, you'll see those open up. So August, September, October, you'll see fall 26 applications open up. Those will be due January 5th, 2026. I would say in terms of contact information of current students, what we do to help, because we know that definitely students are interested in meeting current students. What we do is, once you're admitted into the program, we do what's called an admitted student social, where you get to come in and meet current students and meet faculty. In fact, we're doing one this year on April 7th. And we're doing one for the IXD program on Zoom tomorrow. So that's really how we do it. And definitely if once you're admitted, you can also email us so we can help set up some of that. But I would say generally at the application stage, we don't really give out current students information really. But once you're admitted, we're happy to help broker that. We have a question here. Yes.
Just to add on to that, is it April 6th or 7th?
This year.
For the admit, so you have been admitted, so you've been invited.
I'm not here on the sixth, and I thought it's six for the undergrads, I didn't know that.
So we are doing a, for admitted students, the School of Information, we're doing a social event on April 7th. Here in the building, that's a Monday.
Thank you.
All right, so Kaja asked, do any of these programs require a portfolio? No, none of them require a portfolio. You don't need to include one, we don't look at it, so don't worry about a portfolio. You will make a portfolio, all these programs though, you are required to have a portfolio by the time you graduate. So you will be making a portfolio, but you don't need one coming in. Esther asked, is there a GPA required for the application? I would say no, there's no GPA required, but with that said though, if your GPA was below a 3.0 as an undergraduate, you definitely do want to explain that in your application. The reason is that as a graduate student at Pratt, you do have to maintain a 3.0 GPA just to stay in the program. So really what you have to explain to us in the statement of intent is how you're going to have a 3.0. And how we know that you won't fall into the same issue you might have had as an undergrad. So it's not a deal breaker having below 3.0, but definitely explain it. Don't just leave it hanging there. Vayad, he asks, would you say the IXD program is still a good fit for those who have experience with industry or better for those with less prior experience? I would say it's gonna be good for both, quite honestly. I think we have people who are coming in without a lot of experience, but the UX field was really very new a while ago and now is not so new. And so we do have people who have portfolios and have some industry experience. So I think it's going to be really applicable to people who have experience. We definitely see, in our folks we've admitted, where people do have some experience. And Neil asks, I want to learn more about UXPA. Can you introduce this activity in the learning or employment resources it offers? Yeah, so UXPA is the User Experience Professional Association. It's a professional association of UX professionals. And it's here in the US, it's kind of a national group. And we do have a student chapter of UXPA. We're actually, in fact, the first student chapter of UXPA in the country. And they do conferences, a journal, but really trying to enhance the professional literature and the professional standing in the UX profession. So yeah, it's definitely, it's definitely something we're kind of involved in. And, they have a conference, yeah, so it's definitely, they have learning opportunity. They have a journal, you can learn from that as well. Casey asks, and this is the beginning of the presentation, are there MLS classes on the Brooklyn campus? Are there online class options? So all the classes are in Manhattan and no classes in Brooklyn. We have very few online options, maybe like 1 or 2 courses a semester. Zoom classes, right? Yeah, so Saul asks, I'm pretty sure nearly all of them are in Manhattan. Oh, good, thank you, Saul, for answering that question. Yeah, it's really a Manhattan kind of experience, I would say. So Kaja asks, what's the acceptance rate for MDC? I would say it's probably pretty high, probably 80 some odd percent. But Michaela asks, is there a preference for in-state students as far as acceptance? No, there's no preference for in-state students. Cool. Our portfolio is required for those considering the history of art and design, library and information science program. No portfolios are required for any of our master's programs. You will make a portfolio though when you graduate. So even if you're in the dual degree, you will do an art history thesis and you will do an LIS portfolio. You'll have to do both to graduate. But coming into the program, you don't need any of that. All right, any other questions in the room or on Zoom?
I have a quick question. For the library information science program, do you have students, whether they are full-time or part-time, that attend ALA conferences? And is there any support for that during the year?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a few things. So I would say for when it comes to ALA, we do have a student chapter of ALA that so they are kind of explicitly tied into ALA. They're called PALA, the American. And so a lot of our student groups, these are pretty much we have an office here, the Office of Student Involvement. It supports student groups. Student groups are a great way for students to come together and like do stuff that they're maybe not doing in courses that they want to do. They want to bring in panels or do stuff. And so we have a student chapter of ALA. We also here at Pratt, we have, for those who want to go to conferences like ALA, we do have what's called the Graduate Student Engagement Fund. And what this does is it allows you to say, you could submit a paper or poster proposal or a presentation to say ALA, and Pratt will fund you to go. So that's, they won't fund you to go just to go to ALA, but if you have like, say, if you're on the program, you're presenting there, they will fund you to go to the conference. So yeah, definitely have folks going to ALA, SAA, other kinds of conferences. Thank you. Yeah. Other questions? So we have a question, do MLS students complete a thesis? No, they complete a portfolio, which includes 3 to 5 projects that showcase that you've mastered the learning outcomes for the program. So it's definitely a lighter lift than a thesis, I would say. And yeah. International students, so we have a question from Shravan about international students and scholarships. Yes, international students are considered for scholarships, for sure by Pratt. Of course, as an international student, though, you cannot get US federal financial aid, but Pratt scholarships can be definitely are definitely given to international students. Any other questions before we go on our?
Hi, can I ask a question? I'm an admitted graduate student and want to know that due to the policy reasons, the internship is not allowed in the first academic year. So is it feasible for students who have no internship experience in the past to apply for unpaid internship or volunteer internship in the first academic year? Or can I put it on my resume as a work experience?
So if you're an international student, you pretty much the only place you can really work your first year before your first summer. So in fall and spring is the only place you can work is at Pratt, right? And we have a lot of GA opportunity, graduate assistant opportunities, jobs on campus that you can do. But what we see though is then that first summer we have students going off and interning, and then entering that whole second year. But did I answer your question about the internship? Feel free to jump in on the chat if you think I missed something there. We do have a question here about and MLS, is it feasible for students who have no internship experience in the past to apply for an unpaid intern, volunteer intern? Oh, I see. Yeah, of course. Yes. You could definitely, you can certainly, intern, yes, at Pratt. As an unpaid internship, as long as they allow it, as long as the site allows it. Julian asked for the IXD program, are there any recommendations on the minimum requirements for a laptop I could find somewhere? Yeah, I don't think we have that. I know a lot of schools have that, but a nice Mac. A nice Mac, a MacBook Air, MacBook Pro. Some people have PCs. I mean, you can have a PC. Anything is really fine. I would say so many things these days are online that you don't need a really fantastic laptop. So yeah, I mean, any computer that works, that's fine. We don't have a lot of And we have two questions here, so
You mentioned graduate assistantships.
Yeah.
So what is the process like? I guess like matching admitted students to one? Is that something that you can do? You can start with for your first semester, or is that more once you're here, a professor figure that out?
yeah, so I would say for graduate assistants, so we do a lot of graduate assistants, a lot of them are working with professors. And what generally they'll do is professors will have dedicated GA hours and they will advertise their openings on our Google groups. And so sometimes professors will be looking for a GA, sometimes they'll have already someone and they won't have any hours because they'll take someone from their first year. But then there's also just like there's also just a lot of jobs also like, running, working in offices and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, I would say in general, like if most people do not have trouble finding, if they want a campus job, like they don't have trouble finding one. And there's also, of course, campus jobs also on the Brooklyn campus as well. So, yeah, there's definitely, yeah, so you can pick up one of those even before you start classes, quite honestly. So like you could pick up one in August or, early September, you could probably find it. They do an on-campus job fair on the Brooklyn campus in early September, usually the first, second week of September. So for some of those offices that are looking for people, but yeah, there's a lot of, if that's what you want to do, a lot of people don't want to work on campus, they'd rather, go work somewhere else, but if you're interested, there are definitely a lot of campus jobs.
Just building on that, do assistantships help with tuition remission at all? I don't know how that works for.
No, so the graduate assistantships, they're pretty much paid as like a student employee, they pay $20 an hour. And you can work up to 20 hours a week, and they're paid to do kind of like a job, so, yeah. Angela asked for the IC program, if there's no mention of a scholarship in the acceptance letter, is there a chance to apply later? I would say if you did not get a scholarship at the time of admission, the only thing you can really do is try again to apply again. So for example, you could apply again by October 1st for the spring 26 semester. And also you don't have to repay for that application fee. If you reach out to admissions, his name is Brian Mulroney. I'll just go ahead, Mulroney, Pratt. He can basically take your application. You could, change what you need to change in your application, but you could just reapply. But yeah, other than reapplying, there's no, you can't get reconsidered for scholarship. Our internship opportunities at Pratt offered year round. I would say, yeah, definitely. I would say typically though, you're going to, a lot of them are semester based, right? Where you're applying for one that goes for the fall or the spring, or some, might go for the year, some might be summer specific. So they're gonna really vary based on kind of the schedule that the institution is working with. Cool. Any other questions before we go on our tour? I need to open Zoom on my phone and I hit Zillow. I'm like, wait, hold on. I don't need a house. All right, folks, so what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna switch over to my phone and we're gonna go on a tour. So just hold on 1 minute while I switch over. I would definitely suggest you take your stuff just because it's New York and everything. All right, folks. We are a bigger group than I expected. I expected about 5 people. I did not expect. Did not. All right. Okay. All right, folks. So welcome to Pratt Manhattan Center. Um, so just a little bit about this building. We've been here since 2002. And when we moved in 2002, the entire place was gut renovated. And then it was renovated again. We got a bunch of spaces that were renovated again during COVID. So if this looks kind of new, it is because it was pretty new. This is one of the spaces that got renovated during COVID. And this is a space we'll use for a lot of events. And it's just kind of a casual hangout spot in between classes, a little bit of art going on. Like we have like a large lecture hall over here with the lights off. Um, but I would say, we don't have like large lecture classes that will be used for maybe big events, like big talks. We'll do an annual kind of big, kind of bring in a kind of a big shot and they'll give a talk and we'll do, that kind of stuff. But we don't, our classes are generally small. They're about 12 to 15 students in a class. Um, but yeah, so yeah, this is kind of the space. So I think kind of on our tour, we'll go ahead and we'll maybe kind of work our way up. I think we're here on the second floor. On the first floor, there is an art gallery. So Pratt puts on shows throughout the year. And unfortunately, the show that was open just closed. It was about Black fashion designers and Black creatives. Unfortunately, it closed maybe about 3 or 4 days ago. And a new show will come up in a week or so, I believe. But yeah, definitely if you're in the neighborhood or around, feel free to check out those shows that they do. They're always pretty good. Um, and it's also very much kind of a part of the culture here. Prep Manhattan is like you go to class and like maybe you like go to a gallery opening in between classes. Um, so I think we're here on two. I think we'll skip three, which is really kind of a department that doesn't have anything to do with the School of Information, and then we'll go up to four, which has kind of our kind of a library in it, a kind of a satellite library for Pratt, and then we'll kind of work our way up from there. So I think probably we'll mostly fit into the elevator. We'll see. Let's go see. So where are folks from? DC. Okay. Nice. See how many people we can get here. It's New York. It's
Like
New York.
standard New York.
Four, yes, thanks.
There's someone looking at the camera, just stay.
What's that?
Someone
Well, yeah,
on the
there's
camera, that's just.
yeah, they're like what is it? Over 20 years. All right, folks. So on this floor, we have our construction management program, but we'll go in and just do a quick swing through of the library here. And so it's not a huge space, but it does have a lot of stuff that's very specific to the School of Information in terms of collections. Um, it also, a lot of stuff is bought electronically these days, ebooks, e-journals, but things that can't be bought electronically are still bought in print and they come here. So we can do a little swing through here. I don't know. So one thing I always like looking at is the new books. This is kind of new titles, and it kind of gives you a sense of the things that people are interested in here and are reading. So it's like, a guide to UX design or, library staff training. So confident UX, you know what I mean? So you can kind of get a sense of the kind of stuff.
Are there course reserves here?
Yes,
They're behind.
right here.
Yeah, I can show you. So all these ones are course reserves here. The professor will just, let us know what they need to have on reserve. And they're available for use in the library only, for 4 hours at a time. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
So I would be remiss if I didn't say you can have a pen if you're interested in a pen.
Please take any ribbons or pins there. Anyone.
And you're a School of Information student, right? We've had this conversation before.
I'm a library, a master student in library science, and I'll be graduating this semester.
And so you will be vacating your GA position.
Yes, this will be available for someone next semester, so.
So you too can make pens.
Yes, make funnies, yep, show people course reserves, help students out with the stuff like that, yeah, it's super fun.
Yep, great. I think it's your name. It's
Rebecca.
Rebecca. Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome. Yeah, of course. Enjoy the rest of the tour. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, you have pronouns. It's nice.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. I didn't break the elevator. Oh. So yeah, so I think our next stop on our tour is we'll go ahead and hit the 6th floor, which is kind of the hub for the School of Information. A lot of our classes take place there. We'll skip 5. 5 is like a lot of computer labs.
Oh, yeah.
I think if we were overweight, it would beep or something, right? Right? Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I think. All right, folks. So this is the 6th floor where it's kind of the hub for the School of Information. This area here we call the Info Lounge. It's kind of just a space for people in between classes to maybe get a little bit of work done and meet up with students. There's a bunch of classes going on right now. Yeah, so I could, and you can kind of feel free to peek your head in, but I would say, in general, you'll get a sense that classes are generally small. They're, 12, 15 people or so. The elevator.
I was asking Rebecca questions.
Oh, Rebecca. Yeah. And also feel free, after the store, feel free to like hang around the building, go ask Rebecca more questions, go read, like we're open till, this building is open till 1 a.m. each night. So, it's kind of a good place to get away from your annoying roommate. So, but yeah, so for example, down the hallway here, we have the head of digital preservation for the New York Public Library, Nick Krabenhoff. He's lecturing down there. We have over here, we have a class, a reference and instruction class with Romel Espanol, who is he's a librarian on the Brooklyn campus. Who else we have here? This is kind of a cool room over here. I teach in here a lot. This is so this is a digital humanities librarian from Sarah Lawrence College, Claudia Berger. She's teaching in there. I didn't want to distract her too much. And she's teaching a digital humanities class. And over here is we're doing Bill LeVay. He's an alum as well. He is the archivist for the New York Philharmonic, and they are doing this is kind of a lab environment where folks will do some digitization of audio. For example, this semester they're working with the Lesbian History Archives to restore some radio programs. So it seems like they're mostly sitting and talking right now. But a way that class often works is maybe there's a lot of sitting and talking in the beginning, and like the later half of the course is a lot of like popping open boxes. Um, and so we have a lot of equipment in here to facilitate that, which is kind of hard to see, but yeah.
How hard is it to get like into the classes you want? Like, is it, if you want to take this class and you need this time period, like, does it tend to work out?
It tends to work out, yeah, tends to work out. Yeah, we tend to try to offer enough so that people don't feel panicked. You know? And we try to make sure we're giving people what they want, we don't, so. All right, so why don't we can kind of feel free to poke in anywhere. So I would say all up and down the hallways here on this you'll see lots of student work. Some of this is presented at the annual showcase of student work. Some of it's presented in classes. Some of it's presented at conferences. So a lot of student work all over the place. So maybe we'll go in here for a sec.
A massage.
Yeah. So this is one of our new a newer space, and so it's kind of our student centric space. It was originally created as part of our UX lab, and the idea was that students could book this room just really easily, just self book it online, and you could use the space to meet with your research team, and so. But it's also kind of become a little bit of a wellness space as well. So we are kind of interested in wellness. So we introduced a massage chair and a lava lamp and headphones. And the massage chair is actually really good. And people actually use it. But yeah, it's a very student centric space. You could just come in here, book it, open till 1 a.m. And often in the morning, I find the massage chair still on where it's like reclined back. So people are definitely using it. And I find these pillows all kind of, we've also like these things are, we've done a lot of stuff for trying to introduce items for neurodivergent folks. Things like this are supposed to be very pleasant, which I totally get because we sit there. It's not about what it looks like. People are like, I don't like it how it looks. I'm like, it's not about how it looks, it's how it feels. Anyways, but yeah, so this is not a classroom, but a kind of a student space. So these might remind you a little bit of high school, but they're pretty popular, the lockers. So, you could stash your stuff in here and go on your day. We have a big computer lab class here, so something, a very techie kind of course like programming would take place here. So I'll give these folks a chance to. They need to send us our new certificate in the mail, ALA. Anyways, so I did want to mention that we have our faculty, our full-time faculty, they keep their offices here. We have faculty offices here, over here, over here. And the full-time faculty they act as advisors as well. So you can come during office hours, you could set up appointments, and they can, you could talk through pretty much, how curriculum intersects with your career goals and what you're trying to do. And so they're all pretty much back here, and they're all pretty much in class. So you see a lot of closed doors. Yes.
I have a silly question, but I noticed that all the computers are Macs. Is that like standard in library science in general? Or just here?
I would say it's like kind of more standard at Pratt, but yeah. Well, we do have some PC labs. So for classes that really require a PC, so I would say, for example, ArcGIS. Like in GIS, people do a lot of ArcGIS, which is really only a window program. So we do have a PC lab downstairs on the 5th floor that people use. But I would say, yeah, a lot of, yeah, we've kind of moved much more into the Mac direction. The last few years. So faculty. All right, I was just being really careful because there was a sign on here, but um, so probably don't have to walk in here, but unless you want to, but this is for those of you interested in the UX area, this is our UX lab. And so for what students can do is they can book this space, and it's really a space for bringing in test subjects. And you can run them through eye tracking studies. You can do, we have the driving simulator there with a little steering wheel. But it's really just a space to really quickly and conveniently bring in test subjects and run them through studies. Feel free to peek in there. You know, we have different cell phones and, you know, different kinds of supplies that folks might need. Down here in this hallway, you can see these are like our student groups have their posters here and of different events they have going on. And so lots of good stuff. So for example, like the museums group has a resume building workshop that they ran. We have a group of students doing a meetup at this exhibition at the Brick on where an exhibition folks are involved in. We have various talks. And we have this talk, Nick, on this Thursday, if anyone's interested in coming back for a talk. It's about AI proofing your career. She's a colleague of one of our faculty, and so I haven't met her before. I have read her book though. So if you're interested, feel free to, it's on Pratt's website. But you know, different student groups are doing different events, such as, you know, tour of the BAM archives or guest speaker, NYU's assistant archivist, you know, designer talks, portfolio critiques, UX-a-thon. So, you know, the student groups do a bit to add different stuff that they want to do. Other stuff you can find over here is things like our recent faculty publications. We have, they're writing journal articles, there's books over there. For example, those of you interested in some of the new ones here, like Professor Chuvakula just published this like maybe 2 weeks ago, Universal Methods of Ethical Design. But yeah, we're always, you know, it's always great to see all the new books that are coming out that people are putting together. But yeah, this is pretty much the 6th floor. This is our administrative office. We're always happy to help people find stuff and do stuff and whatever they might need. So we're going to go ahead and hit our last floor, which is the 7th floor. And this is another space that was renovated during COVID. And it's kind of, it's got a lounge space, and it's also it's got some additional offices. Oops.
Sure. That was all the best for the line, like the competitions.
At EDU, we have profiles of faculty, and a lot of them have websites. So yeah, they'll definitely their web pages are probably the best. All right, folks. So this is another space that was renovated during COVID. And we have another department up here, creative enterprise leadership. But then we also have this kind of lounge area, which is kind of a space that students kind of can have to work and hang out. There's food over here. There's like a farmer's fridge, coffee, vending machines. But I'd also say there's also a set of student services offices in the back. And how I describe this is like kind of anything other than a professor, they're kind of there, right? So these are health, counseling, disability services, financial aid. So kind of, yeah, anything that's like outside of a professor, they're kind of up here. Um, but yeah, I think you know, and then there's a bunch of classrooms up here as well, kind of around here and back that way. But yeah, I think that is pretty much the tour of the building. I guess for those of you on Zoom, that is the end of our tour. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I think everyone should have my email, or you can Google me, Anthony Cosiolo. You know, feel free to reach out. But thank you everyone on Zoom and have a good night.